When the VP moaned my wife's name in a dark boardroom, the mic they forgot about was mine. I didn't confront them. I scheduled their downfall. That sentence has lived rent-free in my head ever since the night everything changed. I wasn't supposed to hear it. I was just the IT guy, the invisible man in the office. The one who fixed printers, patched servers, and made sure the Wi-Fi didn't crash during big presentations. Nobody thought of me unless something broke. And yet, in the silence of the company's server room, surrounded by the soft hum of machines, I became the audience to the dirtiest secret of my life. Before I dive into what I found, let me pause for a second. If you're into twisted office drama, shocking betrayals, and revenge that's more brains than brawn, you're going to want to stick around. Go ahead and subscribe now so you don't miss stories like this one. Because trust me, this ride only gets darker. It started on a Wednesday night, way past office hours. I was on call, fixing a firewall issue that had been nagging me for days. The system kept flagging unusual network activity, nothing critical, just enough to bug me. When I dug deeper, I realized one of the conference room mics was still hot, recording and transmitting sound when no one was supposed to be there. At first, I thought it was a glitch. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. I clicked into the feed, and that's when my stomach dropped that I heard my wife's laugh. Taylor. Sweet, confident, magnetic Taylor. She was the company's golden girl, the marketing director who could sell water to a drowning man. But her laugh wasn't professional. It was soft, low, the kind she used with me when we were still us. Then came a man's voice. Gavin Sykes, our vice president. Charismatic, powerful, the kind of guy who filled a room just by walking in. His voice was closer, lower, laced with something I'd never want to hear near my wife. The mic didn't catch everything, but it caught enough. Her whisper, his chuckle, the scrape of a chair, and then my name. Falling from her lips in the worst possible context, it felt like being stabbed in the chest while someone twisted the blade just to make sure I couldn't breathe. I could have stormed out, confronted them, demanded answers. But instead, something inside me went cold. Like a switch flipped. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. No, I was going to record. See, the thing about being invisible in a corporate world is people forget you're always there. They forget who set up the cameras, who has admin access to the security system, who maintains the email servers, who approves the updates. They forget the quiet guy with the badge and the hoodie is the one holding all the keys. And in that moment, I realized I had every single one of them. I downloaded the audio. Then I checked the cameras. One angle in the hallway had caught them slipping into the boardroom after hours. Another showed them leaving together, a little too close for anything professional. It wasn't crystal clear, but it was enough when paired with the sound I'd captured. That was the beginning of my folder, the one I named Evidence, and tucked away where nobody but me could touch it. The rest of that night, I didn't sleep. I just sat in the glow of the monitors, replaying every second, my brain rewiring itself around this new reality. My wife wasn't my wife anymore. She was an actress in a play I hadn't agreed to watch, let alone star in. And Gavin, the man who shook my hand every Monday morning, thanking me for keeping his empire running smoothly. He was rewriting my life without permission. The next morning, I looked at her across the kitchen table. She smiled at me, kissed me on the cheek, poured me coffee, and talked about the big pitch she had later that week. I watched her lips move, but all I could hear was her voice from the night before. She had no idea I knew. No idea that I was staring at her the way a surgeon looks at an X-ray before opening a chest. Calm, detached, ready to cut. Most people, when they catch their partner cheating, they explode. They break things. They scream. They post angry rants online. But I'm not most people. I'm an IT guy. My whole life is systems, patience, precision. If something's broken, you don't slam the keyboard. You diagnose, isolate, and remove the corrupted file. And now, my marriage was just another system with a virus. The difference? This time, I wasn't going to patch it. I was going to burn it out. I made a decision that morning, sitting across from my lying wife with her perfect smile and perfect hair. I wasn't going to let this kill me. I wasn't going to let Gavin and Taylor walk all over me like I was some doormat nerd they could play while climbing the corporate ladder. No, I was going to use every ounce of knowledge, every line of code, every hidden access point I had in this company to craft something neither of them would ever see coming. Because revenge doesn't need fists. It needs patience. It needs intelligence. And it needs someone willing to play invisible until the very last second. And that someone was me. The folder I created, evidence, became my second home. Every night, after she fell asleep, I slipped into my office, shut the door, and let the glow of my monitors swallow me. Line by line, file by file, I pieced together the hidden version of my wife's life. If she was going to live a double life, I was going to document every frame of it.at first. It was just the audio and the hallway clips. Enough to make my blood boil, but not enough to detonate the bomb I was already building. I needed more. I needed proof that couldn't be twisted, couldn't be brushed off as misunderstood or taken out of context. If there's one thing corporate America loves, it's plausible deniability. My job was to strip that away. The emails were my next find. See, most executives think they're untouchable. They believe their inbox is private because their password is complicated. But when you're the guy who configures the servers, passwords are just doors without locks. It didn't take long before I was mirroring Gavin's entire account. And there she was, Taylor. Her name threaded through subject lines at 2 in the morning. Half-hidden jokes. Meeting requests labeled as strategy sessions with attachments that had nothing to do with work. One thread stuck with me. Gavin had written, "You'll have more power than anyone else in that department once we announce it. I'll make sure of it." And her reply, sent from the house we shared, at 12:47 a.m., "I can't wait. I feel like we're unstoppable together. Just don't let him suspect anything yet." That him was me. She couldn't even type my name. I sat there staring at the screen, my hands steady, my pulse flat. She was planning her future in the same room where I slept beside her. Promises written in pixels, lined up neatly in an inbox, like confessions waiting for trial. But the deeper I dug, the dirtier it got. Gavin wasn't just promising her a promotion. He was bending numbers. Buried in attachments were reports with adjusted figures, doctored charts that made campaigns look twice as successful as they really were. In between the sweet nothings and late-night jokes, there were invoices routed through shady third-party vendors. I didn't need to be a forensic accountant to see it. Money was being shifted, numbers inflated. And guess who signed off on the marketing side? My wife. I leaned back in my chair and actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was poetic. She thought she was just cheating on me. What she didn't realize was that she was tying her career, her reputation, and her entire future to a sinking ship. Gavin's greed was the engine, but she was strapped in for the ride. The next morning, over breakfast, I tested her. I asked casual questions. How late she stayed up, how the pitch was going, if Gavin seemed stressed. She answered with the calm of an actress who knows her lines. She looked me in the eyes while stirring cream into her coffee and lied like it was second nature. I nodded along, smiled, even reached across the table to squeeze her hand. And in that moment, I realized I was done loving her. The switch had flipped. She was no longer my wife. She was my project, my case study, my virus to quarantine. Over the following week, I automated everything. Every camera feed, every forwarded email, every calendar invite they shared, copied and dumped into my hidden archive. Scripts ran silently in the background, pulling log files from chat apps, recording login times, tracing file transfers. They thought their world was private, but to me, it was glass. Transparent, fragile, waiting for a crack. And oh, there were moments that nearly broke me. Like the night I saw her car parked in the garage long after hours, while mine sat in our driveway. I pulled up the feed from the 15th floor, and there they were, Gavin and Taylor, alone in the glow of a projector. His hand brushed hers as she clicked through slides. Her smile widened in a way I hadn't seen in months. It wasn't graphic, not explicit, but I didn't need more. Intimacy doesn't always need skin. Sometimes it's the way two people lean toward each other, like gravity has chosen sides. I could have burst into that building. I could have called her phone right then. Instead, I added another timestamp to the folder. Every lie, every stolen moment, every late-night meeting became a brick in the wall I was building around them. Because walls aren't just for keeping things out. They're for trapping things inside. Until the whole structure collapses, there's a strange kind of power in knowing something no one else does. Every morning, I woke up next to her, played the role of the loyal husband, kissed her cheek, and watched her head out the door. But the second the house was empty, I became someone else entirely. Not Ray the IT guy, not Ray the husband. I was Ray the archivist, Ray the hunter, I built routines around her lies. If she said she'd be late at the office, I pulled up the feeds from the upper floors. If she texted me about client dinners, I traced her location through the company-issued phone. The beauty of corporate surveillance is that it's everywhere, woven into every device, every login. And with my access, she was an open book. The messages were the hardest to read. Not because of the words, they were tame enough on the surface, but the tone, the way she typed differently with him. Shorter sentences, faster replies, little bursts of excitement she never sent me anymore. One message burned into my memory. I felt electricity when you brushed my hand last night. I keep thinking about it. Electricity. That word haunted me. She was describing sparks. While my nights were cold and silent, I started keeping a timeline, a literal logbook. Day, time, location, action. A forensic diary of betrayal. 9:14 p.m. Enters Gavin's office. 11:02 p.m. Leaves, lipstick slightly smudged. Details no one else noticed, details no one cared about. But to me, every tiny piece mattered. At home, I tested the waters with casual affection. I'd put my hand on her back when she cooked, kiss her neck when she wasn't expecting it. Sometimes she'd smile, lean into me for a second. Other times, she flinched, barely noticeable, but enough for me to mark it down. She was splitting herself, and the cracks were showing. One night, she came home glowing. Not the tired, overworked glow of a marketing director who'd crushed a deadline. This was different. It was the glow of someone who had just been wanted, admired, promised something bigger. She kicked off her heels, poured herself a glass of wine, and told me about big changes coming soon. She never said what, but her eyes were sparkling like she'd already been crowned queen. I nodded, asked the right questions, even raised my glass to her future. But inside, I was laughing. Not out loud, never out loud. Just that cold, silent laugh you feel in your chest when you know the ending of a story no one else has read. Because here's the truth. She wasn't the only one playing two lives. During the day, I played the invisible technician, moving between cubicles and servers, fixing what people broke. At night, I was the ghost in their machines, copying files, scraping data, and threading it all together into something sharp enough to cut. The more I saw, the more I realized Gavin's rot went deeper than her. He wasn't just a cheater, he was a thief. Numbers didn't match. Vendors billed double, sometimes triple, for services that didn't exist. And Taylor, whether knowingly or not, had her name on the approvals. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was fraud. And in the corporate world, fraud is the nuclear button. One particular night sticks out. She came home late, hair slightly out of place, perfume stronger than usual. She slipped into bed beside me, warm from wine, and tried to snuggle close. Her hand rested on my chest, and for a split second, I almost forgot. Almost. But then I pictured the hallway camera from 2 hours earlier, capturing her stepping into Gavin's car. The warmth turned to ice. She whispered, "I love you." I whispered back, "I know." She didn't notice the difference. She never did. That was the night I stopped feeling pain. From then on, every act of affection, every lie, every fake smile, it wasn't torture anymore. It was ammunition. And when you're loading a gun this carefully, you don't pull the trigger too soon. You wait. You aim. You let them believe they're safe. Because the moment you fire, it has to be fatal. By the fourth week, I wasn't just collecting data, I was mapping their world. Every email, every calendar event, every swipe of their key cards painted a picture of their rhythm. They thought they were clever, slipping out of meetings early or staying late after everyone else had gone home. But the thing about patterns is they always repeat. And once you know the rhythm, you can predict the next step. One evening, the company held a small after-hours mixer for upper management. I wasn't invited, of course. IT never is. But I didn't need an invitation. I had access to the internal live streams set up for corporate branding. Watching from my office, I saw them across the room. Gavin's hand rested just a little, too long on the small of her back as he guided her through the crowd. Her smile wasn't professional, it was intimate. That glow again, the one she used to reserve for me, no one else seemed to notice, or maybe no one wanted to. Offices are like that. People see things, but they pretend not to if it means keeping their jobs. Later that night, after the event, I tracked them through keycard logs. They left within minutes of each other, but didn't go home. Gavin's car pulled into a downtown hotel, and minutes later, Taylor's did too. I didn't need a camera inside to know what was happening. The very thought of it made my stomach twist, but I didn't let the rage control me. I simply logged the timestamp, saved the footage, and added it to the archive. The next morning, she was unusually affectionate. Coffee already brewed, breakfast waiting, a kiss that lingered longer than usual. Guilt, it always makes people perform. She chatted about how exhausting the mixer had been, how she'd barely gotten any sleep. I smiled, nodded, told her she deserved a break. And in my head, I wrote another entry in my mental diary. Actors always overplay the part when they feel exposed. But betrayal wasn't my only discovery. While digging deeper into Gavin's files, I stumbled onto something even bigger: vendor contracts, inflated invoices, approval chains with forged signatures. Gavin wasn't just bending numbers, he was rerouting entire streams of company money. And the more I traced, the more I saw my wife's initials attached to approvals. At first, I wondered if she even knew. Was she complicit or just careless? Did she realize her name was sitting on fraudulent contracts that could ruin her career? Or did she just trust Gavin enough to sign whatever he slid across her desk? The question gnawed at me, but not in a way that made me pity her. No, I realized something important. Whether she knew or not didn't matter. To the outside world, ignorance isn't a defense. When the storm hit, she would go down with him. The thought gave me a dark kind of satisfaction. One night, I walked past our bedroom and paused at the door. She was on the bed, phone in hand, texting. I leaned on the frame, watching her fingers move quickly across the screen, her lips curled into a small smile. She didn't even notice me there. I didn't need to guess who she was texting. Finally, she looked up, caught my gaze, and tucked the phone under the pillow with a laugh that was just a little too forced. "Work never stops," she said. I smiled. I know. She thought I was buying the lie. She had no idea I was the one holding the receipt. From that night on, I stopped being just a spectator. I started creating triggers, little pieces of code buried deep in the system. If Gavin uploaded a report, I got a copy. If Taylor signed off on something, it duplicated in my archive. They weren't just under surveillance anymore. They were puppets, dancing on strings they didn't even know existed. And me? I was no longer invisible. I was in control. The announcement came on a Thursday morning. The company was restructuring, new leadership roles were opening, and Gavin had nominated Taylor for a senior director position. It wasn't quite the vice presidency, but it put her directly under him, officially, professionally, and visibly. At home, she played the part of the humble achiever. She told me over dinner that she hadn't expected it, that she was honored to be considered. But her eyes betrayed her. They sparkled with the same electricity I'd seen in her texts, the same glow I'd seen on her face after nights she didn't come home until dawn. I lifted my glass to her, toasted her success, and smiled like the proud husband. She leaned across the table, kissed me, and whispered, "Thank you for always believing in me." And I thought, if only you knew how much I believe in endings. Behind the scenes, my scripts were working overtime. Every report she touched, every budget file she opened, every approval she clicked, mirrored, and saved. Her digital fingerprints were all over Gavin's dirty work, and my archive was becoming a fortress of undeniable proof. The irony was cruel. She thought Gavin was building her career, but in reality, he was building my case. Every signature, every late-night document, every whispered, "Trust me," he gave her was another brick in the wall I would eventually topple on both of them. One night, she came home from a working dinner, glowing again. She slipped into bed, warm and smelling faintly of expensive cologne that wasn't mine. She curled into me, resting her head on my chest, her breathing slow and content. It should have broken me. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, cataloging the scent, the timing, the way she hummed softly before falling asleep. Another entry for the log. Another piece of evidence for the archive. The next morning, she made pancakes, something she hadn't done in months. Guilt again. Performative love. I ate them, smiled, even kissed her cheek with a warmth she didn't deserve. She never suspected that I was memorizing her every move like a scientist observing a subject in a controlled experiment. At the office, Gavin grew bolder too. He strolled the halls like a man untouchable, clapping people on the back, laughing too loudly. His confidence was a mask, and I could see the cracks. Behind that charm, he was terrified of numbers. I had the real spreadsheets, the unedited versions that told the truth. And I knew that one day soon, he'd trip over his own lies. I began crafting the skeleton of my plan. It had to be more than just revenge. It had to be undeniable, irreversible. A single strike that left no room for escape. A data package timed perfectly, delivered where it hurt the most, when they least expected it. But timing is everything. So I waited. I smiled. I played the loyal husband at home, the quiet IT guy at work. Invisible, harmless, boring. What they didn't know was that I had already written the script of their downfall. And like any good system admin, I wasn't going to launch it until the exact moment it would do the most damage. Because the truth isn't enough on its own. The truth needs an audience. Corporate conferences are a circus. Bright lights, overblown speeches, executives parading their vision, while employees clap politely and check their phones under the table. This year, though, the circus was different. Gavin was set to open the event, and Taylor was going to be announced as his new right hand. The timing couldn't have been better. Weeks of surveillance had given me everything I needed. Emails, video clips, doctored reports, financial fraud, and intimate proof of betrayal. But evidence without delivery is useless. A secret doesn't sting unless it's revealed at the perfect moment. And what better moment than in front of hundreds of employees, clients, and board members? I spent nights building the trigger, a hidden script buried deep in the company's presentation system. When Gavin clicked to the second slide of his keynote, the system wouldn't display market growth charts. It would display him, his voice, his words, his lies, spliced together with the receipts I'd collected. A digital guillotine, waiting for his command at home. Life played out like a bad sitcom. Taylor was glowing more than ever. She bought new dresses, stayed late at work, preparing, and practiced speeches in front of the mirror when she thought I wasn't listening. I'd stand in the doorway, watching her, smiling faintly. She thought I was proud. She had no idea I was rehearsing too, just for a different kind of performance point one night. She came home tipsy after a late strategy session. She slipped off her heels, swayed toward me, and kissed me harder than she had in months. Her perfume was heavy, her lipstick slightly smudged. She whispered, "Big things are coming for us." I kissed her back, gently, deliberately, and thought, "You're right. Just not the way you think." The days leading up to the conference blurred into a strange double life. By day, I was the helpful IT guy making sure the event ran smoothly, setting up microphones, testing projectors, double-checking Wi-Fi connections. No one suspected that I was also hiding a ticking time bomb inside the very system they trusted. By night, I refined the package. Not just videos and emails, but financial records, too. Clear, undeniable trails of money siphoned through shell vendors. I built flowcharts that showed every fake invoice, every forged approval, every signature Gavin thought would stay hidden. And Taylor's name was there, highlighted like a beacon. The irony cut deep. She thought this conference would mark the start of her reign. In reality, it would be the execution ground. On the eve of the event, she surprised me with a gift. A sleek new watch, expensive, engraved with the words, "To my partner in everything." I smiled as I fastened it to my wrist. "Perfect," I said. She kissed me and whispered, "You'll always be my rock." But as I held her, my other hand brushed the small USB drive hidden in my pocket, the one that held her downfall. She thought she was giving me time. She had no idea I had already scheduled the moment hers would run out. When you work in IT long enough, you learn one golden rule: never rely on a single backup. That applied to data and to revenge. The conference plan was airtight, but airtight isn't enough when you're dealing with people this slippery. So I created fail-safes. Copies of the evidence packaged into anonymous emails, scheduled to go out to journalists, board members, and auditors if my main trigger failed. Gavin could silence a room, but he couldn't silence the internet. The weight of what I had built pressed on me every night. The folder that started as a collection of suspicions had become a war chest. Audio files, video clips, spreadsheets, contracts, enough to bury a career, ruin a marriage, and detonate a corporation's reputation in one strike. And still, they kept giving me more. 2 nights before the conference, I pulled up the office cameras out of habit, and there they were. Gavin and Taylor, in his corner office, blinds half closed but not enough to hide the silhouettes. His hand lingered on her waist, hers on his chest. They were careful not to cross a line too obvious, but they didn't have to. The intimacy was there, written in body language, in the way they leaned close as if the world had disappeared, that I watched long enough to feel my stomach twist, then hit record. Another timestamp. Another reminder of why I couldn't stop now to AT home. She floated through the week like she was already crowned. She hummed while cooking, laughed too loudly at nothing, and threw herself into preparations with a kind of giddy energy I hadn't seen in years. One evening, she tried to pull me into it, dragging me to the living room, playing her speech aloud, asking for feedback. I nodded, clapped at the right moments, even offered suggestions. She threw her arms around me, kissed me, and whispered, "I couldn't do this without you." The irony nearly made me choke. Without me? She was right, but not the way she thought. Meanwhile, Gavin strutted through the office like a king before his coronation. I passed him in the hallway once, and he clapped me on the shoulder like we were old friends. "Big week ahead, Ray," he said, grinning. I smiled back, the perfect mask. "You have no idea," I thought. That night, I finalized the fail-safes. The script for the conference was ready, but now the backups were too. A separate server mirrored the files. A private cloud drive held another copy. And that little USB drive in my pocket? That was the ace. If everything else failed, I could walk into the conference and plug it in myself. Lying in bed beside her that night, I stared at the ceiling while she slept peacefully against me. Her breathing was steady, her face relaxed, like a woman who believed she was safe. She had no idea the ground beneath her was about to collapse. The thought didn't hurt anymore. It thrilled me. Revenge isn't about anger. Anger fades. Revenge is about patience. Revenge is about precision. And I was almost at the finish line. The night before the conference felt like the silence before a storm. Everything looked normal on the surface. Dinner, a glass of wine, a kiss goodnight. But under it all, I could hear the ticking of the clock counting down to their downfall. Taylor was radiant, buzzing with nervous energy. She spent hours in front of the mirror, rehearsing her part of the announcement, trying on outfits, adjusting her hair, asking for my opinion. I gave her all the right words, played the supportive husband, and even helped zip up her new dress. Her back was warm under my hand, smooth and familiar, but it didn't stir anything in me anymore. She turned, kissed me softly, her eyes searching mine for pride that I gave her the look she wanted. Inside, I was thinking, tomorrow, the same eyes will look at you differently. Not with pride, with pity. Later that evening, Gavin called her. I knew because I saw his number light up on her phone, even though she quickly turned its screen down on the counter. She laughed too easily while talking, her voice hushed, playful. I sat across the room, sipping my drink, pretending to scroll through my phone. She thought I wasn't listening. She thought I never listened. But I didn't need her words. I had everything already. Recordings, files, contracts. And soon, everyone else would too. When she finally hung up, she wrapped her arms around me from behind, pressing her cheek to my shoulder. "I can't believe tomorrow's the start of everything," she whispered. I turned, kissed her forehead, and whispered back, "Neither can I." That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of nerves, but because of anticipation. I lay awake, staring at the glow of the watch she'd given me, listening to her steady breathing beside me. I thought about all the nights she'd come home smelling of him, all the mornings she'd smiled like nothing had happened, all the lies stacked on top of each other like a house of cards. Tomorrow, I'd pull the bottom card. In the early hours of the morning, I slipped out of bed and into my office. The monitors lit up my face as I checked everything one last time. The script was ready, the fail-safes armed, the USB drive in my pocket. The files weren't just damning, they were devastating. Charts that proved fraud, emails that proved betrayal, videos that proved intimacy, all threaded together into a story that no one could spin away. I uploaded a copy to an anonymous drop, just in case. Insurance. Revenge wasn't just about making them fall. It was about making sure they couldn't get back up. As the sun started to rise, I returned to bed. She stirred, mumbled my name, and snuggled closer. For the first time in weeks, I felt nothing at all. No anger, no pain, no regret. Just calm, the kind of calm that comes before destruction. The ballroom was packed. Rows of suits filled the chairs, the stage bathed in light. Cameras streaming everything live to thousands of employees across the country. The company's annual conference was always a spectacle, but this year it felt more like a coronation. Gavin was set to announce his bold, new era, and Taylor was his shining star. I stood in the back, headset around my neck, wearing the bland black polo of the tech crew. Invisible, just another worker making sure the microphones didn't cut out. Nobody looked at me twice. Nobody knew the real show was already cued, hidden behind a single click of Gavin's hand. The lights dimmed. Applause roared as Gavin strutted on stage, every inch the charismatic leader. His smile gleamed under the spotlight, his voice booming as he opened with jokes, small talk, charm. He waved toward Taylor in the front row, her face glowing with pride. She looked beautiful, radiant, her eyes sparkling as if she already wore the crown. That he clicked to the second slide. The room froze, instead of market charts. The giant screen lit up with a grainy hallway video. Gavin and Taylor slipping into a boardroom after hours, their laughter caught on camera. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Gavin stammered, tried to move to the next slide, only for the footage to shift again. Emails appeared, subject lines glowing like neon signs. Can't stop thinking about last night. You'll have more power than anyone. Her replies. His promises. Their lies. Murmurs turned into whispers. Whispers into shouts that Gavin's face drained of color. This is a technical error, he barked, fumbling with the clicker. But the system was mine now. Each click only dug the knife deeper. Doctored financial reports flashed onto the screen, side by side with the originals. Flowcharts of fake vendors, invoices signed with both his name and hers. The audience shifted from shock to outrage. Phones lifted into the air, recording, snapping photos, streaming live. The whispers weren't whispers anymore. They were accusations, questions, fury. Taylor's face went pale. Her smile cracked, her eyes wide, lips parted in silent horror. She looked around, searching for an escape, but there was none. Every screen in the building was synced, every device displaying their betrayal, their fraud, their downfall. That I stood in the back, calm, steady, watching the empire crumble. Security approached the stage. Gavin raised his hands, shouting, trying to spin it, to claim sabotage. But it was too late. The evidence wasn't just on the screen. It was already in inboxes, already forwarded to journalists, already on its way to auditors. My fail-safes had done their job. The CEO, red-faced and furious, stormed to the stage. The mic picked up every word, effective immediately. You were suspended pending investigation. The room erupted into chaos, and there she was, my wife, sitting frozen in her chair. Her perfect hair and perfect dress now just part of the wreckage. She caught my eyes across the room. For the first time, her mask was gone. Fear, shame, betrayal. She looked at me as if realizing, too late, who had really been watching all along. That I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just turned, slipped out the side door, and left the applause of destruction behind me. Because revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, precise, final. When the dust settled, I didn't look back. Gavin was out within 24 hours, suspended, disgraced, his name all over headlines about fraud and betrayal. Taylor's promotion never happened. Instead, she was summoned to HR, grilled by auditors, and left in a blur of shame. The woman who once carried herself like a queen was suddenly just another cautionary tale whispered around cubicles. People asked me later why I didn't confront her, why I didn't scream or demand explanations. The truth? I didn't need closure from her. I had already written my own. I filed for divorce quietly. No dramatic fights, no begging, just signatures and silence. She tried to call, to text, to explain, but there was nothing left to explain. Every word would have been another lie. I let the lawyers handle it. For me, it was already over. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. No secrets dragging me down, no lies buzzing in the back of my skull. I left the company too, not in disgrace, but by choice. And with the severance I negotiated, plus the consulting offers that came flooding in after people realized how much I knew about security, I built something of my own. A business. My business. Cybersecurity consulting. Helping companies avoid the very kind of breach that brought mine down. The irony wasn't lost on me. The invisible man had finally stepped into the spotlight, and in that new life, I found peace. Not the shallow peace of pretending everything was fine, but real peace. Nights of sleep without replaying old tapes. Mornings where I looked in the mirror and saw someone who had survived. Someone who had chosen to fight back in his own way. Do I miss her? No. What I miss is the version of me who believed in her. But he's gone, replaced by someone stronger. Sometimes, revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about freeing yourself. And I did that. If you've stayed with me through this story, I've got one question for you. Did I do the right thing? What would you have done in my place? Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss more stories like this one. Hit that like button if this story kept you hooked, and drop a comment below. I want to know your take. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't what you do to them. It's what you build for yourself after they're gone.